Okay, so are you ready to dive deep into the world of ultrasound?
Always ready for a good deep dive.
Well, this time we're going way beyond those fuzzy baby pictures everyone's seen and really getting into the physics that make this technology tick. You know, how it actually works.
The physics is definitely where the magic happens.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So you sent us some really cool textbook excerpts.
I did.
Yeah, and a sneak peek at the physics board review. So you're ready to get serious about sound.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun challenge for us today.
Well, great. All right, let's get started. So first things first, we're dealing with sound waves, right? But not the kind we hear every day.
Right. We're talking about ultrasound, which means we're venturing into sound frequencies way above what the human ear can pick up.
Okay, so beyond like the typical range we're used to hearing.
Yeah, I think 20 kilohertz and above.
Whoa, okay, 20 kilohertz, that's pretty high.
It is. It's basically a whole secret language that our ears just aren't equipped to decode.
So we need a special translator then.
Exactly. And that's where the magic of the ultrasound machine comes in. It allows us to tap into those high-frequency sound waves and use them for, well, all sorts of things, like medical imaging, of course.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Right. But it doesn't stop there. We're talking sonar navigation, industrial testing. Ultrasound really is a versatile tool.
Wow, okay, so we've got these high-frequency sound waves zipping around. But how do we actually use them to see inside things? I mean, that's the whole point, right? To get a glimpse of what's going on beneath the surface.
It is, and it all boils down to one pretty fundamental concept called the range equation.
Okay, the range equation, I see that in my notes.
Yeah, it's basically our sonic measuring stick.
Okay, a sonic measuring stick, I like that.
Yeah, so imagine you're an ultrasound technician.
Okay, I'm with you.
And you're trying to get a clear picture of a patient's liver, let's say. Well, you need to know exactly how deep to focus the ultrasound beam.
Makes sense, so you're not just shooting in the dark?
Exactly. So by measuring the time it takes for the sound wave to travel to the liver and bounce back as an echo, we can use the range equation to pinpoint the exact depth.
Ah, okay, so it's like we're timing the round trip of the sound waves.
Precisely. It's like sonar, but for the human body. You send out a pulse, you time the echo, and boom, you know how far away something is.
That's so cool. This is simple, yet so effective.
It really is. And here's where the range equation gets even more interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
It also shows us that higher frequency sound waves, while they're fantastic for detail, they don't penetrate as deeply.
Ah, so there's a trade-off then.
Absolutely. It's a classic trade-off. Detail versus depth.
So like with a camera lens, sometimes you need a wide shot and other times you need that super close-up detail.
Exactly. Choosing the right frequency is all about understanding the compromise between the two.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got these high-frequency sound waves and this awesome range equation guiding our way. But what about the equipment itself? What about these transducers I keep hearing about?
The transducers. They're definitely the heart and soul of any ultrasound system.
Yeah, they seem pretty crucial.
They are. Think of the transducer as both the loudspeaker and the microphone of the ultrasound world.
Wait, so they send out the sound waves and then also pick up the echoes?
Precisely. And here's the cool part. They contain these incredible piezoelectric crystals.
Piezoelectric crystals. So those are the key players.
Exactly. These crystals have a remarkable property. They vibrate when an electrical current is applied to them, and guess what? That vibration creates sound waves.
Wow, okay, so electricity in, sound waves out.
Yeah, and it works the other way, too. When those sound waves bounce back as echoes, the crystals vibrate again.
Oh, wow, I see.
And get this, that vibration is converted back into electrical signals that the machine can process.
So it's like a two-way street for sound and electricity.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The transducer is this amazing little converter constantly switching between these two forms of energy.
Okay, but hold on. How does the transducer keep the outgoing sound waves and the incoming echoes separate? It seems like things could get really jumbled up in there.
It's all about timing. The ultrasound system is incredibly clever. It sends out those sound waves in very short bursts.
Okay, short bursts.
Yeah, and then it listens for the echoes to return before sending out the next burst. It's like a carefully choreographed dance of sound waves, and the transducer is the star performer.
That makes sense. So it's all precisely timed so the echoes have a chance to return before the next wave is sent out. Okay, so we're sending out these sound waves, but they're not just random noise bouncing around, right?
You're right, they're actually shaped into these focused beams. Think of it like shining a flashlight versus just turning on a light bulb.
Okay, so we're directing the sound, not just letting it spread out everywhere.
Exactly. And to understand how that focusing works, we need to think about something called Huygens' principle.
Huygens principle. Okay, that sounds a bit intimidating.
Don't worry, it's actually a pretty cool concept.
Okay, break it down for me.
So imagine you're dropping a pebble into a still pond. You see those ripples spreading out in perfect circles.
Yeah, I can picture that.
Well, Huygens' principle basically says that each point on a wavefront acts like a tiny source of new waves. So each little ripple creates more ripples, and they all kind of work together.
Okay, so they all combine to create the overall shape of the wave.
Exactly. Now, in ultrasound, it's those tiny waves from all the points on the transducer face that combine to create that nice focused beam we need for imaging. It's like a team effort of tiny waves working together.
That is really cool. So the shape of the beam comes from the combined efforts of all these tiny wavelets emanating from the transducer. Okay, so we've got these focused sound beams. They've bounced back as echoes, and now we need to use that information to create those amazing 2D images we see in medical settings. How does that happen? How do we go from echoes to images?
Think of it like painting a picture, line by line. Early ultrasound systems used a method called mechanical scanning. Basically, you had a single transducer element that would physically sweep back and forth to create the image. It was kind of like using a tiny paintbrush to slowly create a large mural.
I can imagine that would be quite slow and probably a bit clunky, too.
Exactly. It had its limitations. But then came a real game changer, phased arrays.
Okay, phase arrays. I see that in my notes, too.
So instead of having just one element, these transducers use multiple small elements that are all electronically controlled. This allows us to steer and focus the beam with amazing precision.
Oh, wow. So it's much more dynamic than just a single element sweeping back and forth.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like having a digital paintbrush that can instantly change its size and shape to paint the perfect picture.
Wow. Phased arrays sound incredibly advanced.
They are. And they're used in a huge range of medical imaging applications. From echocardiograms to fetal imaging, phased arrays have revolutionized ultrasound. We can now create 3D images, see blood flow in real time, and even guide minimally invasive procedures. It's truly remarkable how far we've come.
It really is amazing what we can do with sound waves these days. Okay, so we've talked about the physics of sound, how the transducers work, and how we create these images. But how do we make sure the images we're getting are actually useful for diagnosis? I mean, a blurry image isn't going to tell us much, right?
You're absolutely right. Image clarity is everything in ultrasound. And to understand that, we need to talk about a few key concepts: contrast resolution, spatial resolution, and temporal resolution.
Okay, 3 types of resolution. Let's break them down one by one, starting with contrast resolution.
All right, so contrast resolution is all about how well we can see the difference between different types of tissue. Imagine a black and white photo. High contrast means there's a stark difference between light and dark areas, which makes the details really stand out.
So good contrast resolution means we can easily tell the difference between, say, a tumor and healthy tissue.
Exactly. It's about highlighting those important differences in the image. Now, spatial resolution, which we talked about a bit earlier, determines how well we can distinguish between objects that are very close together.
Right, so we can tell if we're looking at 2 separate structures or just one blurry blob.
Precisely. High spatial resolution means we can pick out those fine details. And finally, we have temporal resolution, which is all about capturing movement. If we're looking at a beating heart, for example, we need high temporal resolution to see each beat clearly.
So it's like having a high-speed camera for the inside of the body.
Exactly. It lets us see those dynamic processes unfold in real time.
Okay, so we've got contrast, spatial, and temporal resolution, all working together to give us a clear and informative image. And I'm guessing all this resolution talk ties back to those signal processing techniques you mentioned earlier.
You're right on the mark. Remember, the transducer is busy converting those sound waves into electrical signals. But those raw signals need some fine-tuning before they can be turned into a clear image. We need to clean them up, amplify them, and process them in various ways to extract the most useful information.
So it's not just about capturing the echoes, it's about what we do with them afterwards.
Precisely. There's a whole world of sophisticated algorithms working behind the scenes to make sure the final image is as clear and informative as possible.
Wow, it's amazing how much is going on behind those seemingly simple ultrasound images. And speaking of clever techniques, my notes also mention something called harmonics. Can you explain what that's all about?
Sure. Think of harmonics like fine-tuning the sound waves to get an even clearer picture.
Okay, fine-tuning for clarity. I like that.
Yeah. So as that ultrasound beam travels through tissue, some of its energy is converted into higher frequencies. Those are what we call harmonics.
Higher frequencies.
Yeah.
But we're already dealing with ultrasound, which is high frequency to begin with.
That's right, but we're talking about even higher multiples of that original frequency.
Okay, so we're going even higher. What's the benefit of that?
By isolating and using those harmonics, we can actually reduce clutter and noise in the image, giving us a sharper picture, especially when we're looking at deeper tissues.
Ah, so it's like we're filtering out the distractions to get a stronger, clearer signal.
Exactly. Harmonics allow us to really hone in on the details we need for accurate diagnosis.
Okay, that's super cool. And then finally, we have all these different ways to display the ultrasound data. Polystable, grayscale, analog, digital. Can you walk me through those? What's the difference?
Yeah, ultimately, it's all about how we choose to visualize that information we've gathered. Early ultrasound systems were what we call bistable, meaning they could only show black and white images. It was very basic. Either something was there or it wasn't.
So like an on-off switch, either black or white.
Yeah, exactly. But things have come a long way since then. We now have grayscale displays, which provide way more detail and subtle variegations. It's like going from a simple sketch to a beautifully shaded drawing.
Okay, shades of gray instead of just black and white.
And then we have color displays, which can be incredibly helpful for visualizing things like blood flow.
Adding color really brings a whole new dimension to the images.
It does. And then, of course, modern digital displays give us incredible flexibility. We can zoom in, take measurements, and even manipulate the images in real time, all thanks to the power of digital technology.
Wow, so it really has come a long way from those simple black and white images.
It has. It's amazing to see how far display technology has advanced alongside ultrasound itself.
Absolutely. And it looks like chapters 14 and 15 in that physics board review, you're using cover display technologies in more detail. Might be worth checking those out if you're interested in learning more.
Yeah, they delve into the specifics of how these different display technologies actually work and how they influence the diagnostic process. It's definitely a fascinating area to explore.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We started with the basic physics of sound waves, then explored how transducers work, learned about image formation and the different types of resolution, and we even touched upon some really cool advanced techniques like harmonics and the evolution of display technology. It's amazing how much complexity there is behind those ultrasound images we often take for granted.
It is remarkable, isn't it? I mean, who knew there was so much going on behind those seemingly simple ultrasound pictures we see every day?
It's a true testament to the power of physics and human ingenuity.
It really is. And you know, what's truly fascinating to me is how we've managed to harness the properties of sound to create such a powerful and non-invasive tool for medicine and so many other fields.
It's incredible to think that sound waves can reveal so much about the world around us and even the world inside us.
Right. And the potential for future advancements is just enormous. There's still so much we don't know, and so much more we can do with ultrasound.
Yeah, the possibilities seem endless. So now that you've taken this deep dive with us, what possibilities do you see on the horizon for ultrasound technology?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. But maybe it's not about finding the one right answer, but about sparking curiosity and encouraging everyone listening to think about the potential of this technology.
Exactly. Who knows what breakthroughs are just around the corner waiting to be discovered?
So keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and let's keep diving deeper into the fascinating world of sound.
To the next deep dive.
Cheers to that.